staying true to your purpose in the midst of great success comes about because, first of all, your purpose is clear to you, and you persevere to stay true to the purpose. And I can say that any success that we've experienced happened because of faith, hard work, great people, and staying true to our purpose.
Well, how do you define your purpose, and how do you define success? How did Henry Ford, Rockefeller, or Vanderbilt define their purpose or success? You're about to hear the first part of Anne Beiler's story, the founder of Auntie Anne's Pretzels, one of the most successful franchise operations in the world with over 1,200 stores worldwide. And yet Anne doesn't claim the business growth of Auntie Anne's as her primary achievement, but rather her ability to overcome many devastating hardships and failures in her own journey. I'm Ken Powell, host of FCCI's Pathway to Purpose podcast, and on this episode, Anne will reference the lives and stories of Ford, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, and provide insight from the tumultuous experiences of her own life in the pursuit of kingdom purpose and God-honoring success. So whether you're in the hard place today, struggling to find hope and next steps, or maybe you're riding high and celebrating victories, well, this story has great inspiration and encouragement for all Christian business owners and leaders wherever you find yourself today. Here's Anne.
I want to talk tonight a bit about, just touch a little bit on success, a little bit about my struggles, and about the power of purpose, and how all of that, it's my story, and it sums up to twist of faith. I'll start with a story. Just recently, last winter, I was in Florida, and after I just did my run, and I stopped by Starbucks, and as I was leaving Starbucks, I noticed this older gentleman sitting outside of the store on a bench, and I'm looking for a place to sit, and he motioned for me to come over and sit by him. So I did. Now, for those of you who have ever been to Florida in the winter, you know that there's a lot of how can I say this? Older people there, and there's not a lot of deep discussions going on. There's very little goal setting. There's very little strategic planning. It's really not about the future. So there's no deepness, no deep discussions. It's just about, so what's your name and where do you live and what did you do? It's more about memories. They go down memory lane. So anyone that you talk to in Florida, pretty much about their past. So I sat down with this guy, and nice-looking, friendly, older gentleman. And so I asked the question, and we began to talk. And so I said, his name is Jack. And so I said, so Jack, what have you done in your life? And he said to me with his as kind a face and as serious as I've ever seen anyone. And he said, that I'm a professional SOB. I'd never heard that before. So I'm thinking the guy is kidding. But he wasn't laughing. And so I asked him, well, Jack, do you think that you've been successful? And he said, well, I have a wife, I have 3 kids, 6 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. And to date, I seldom get phone calls from any one of them. So I guess you might say I've been successful. Wow. So then I asked him, so what else have you done? I'm thinking this guy may have been a day laborer or something, just like a blue-collar worker or. But he told me that he'd retired from Merrill Lynch after 35 years. He'd been with another company that he retired from for 25 years. So those of us who can do some quick math, maybe the accountants out here can tell you that's a total of 60 years. And as I was just thinking about what he said, I thought, wow, I guess after 60 years in corporate life, it's very possible to become cynical rather than to feel successful. In our journey to success, we can really lose the things that are most important to us. And I want to encourage you tonight. I founded and I started and I maintained and I grew Auntie Anne's soft pretzels. And it took about 20 years of my life. And so I understand how important success may seem and how growing your company, may be so exciting. And you're telling everybody what you're doing and how many locations you have, and it's really important. But I can tell you that's really not what success is all about. My own experience says that my greatest success, and I talked about it this morning, is my success at overcoming myself. Success always has a beginning, and it always has an ending. And how we finish is more important than how we began. And Jack is a great example of that. If you end your successful career and you have no relationships with any of your children or your spouse or your neighbors or your best friends, then I would say that is not success. How we finish is more important than how we began. The legacy that we leave behind is determined by how well we've finished the race. I know that many of you here tonight have been and are very successful to varying degrees. So what does true success really look like? All of us may have our own definition. What does it feel like, or what's it seem like, or what is it to you? There's a definition that I found that I like. Success is defined as an event that accomplishes its intended purpose, a state of prosperity or fame. Heard a quote just recently that said, success is going from one failure to the next with enthusiasm. How many of you get that? I mean, most of us between our failures are more like it's the Great Depression. We don't go from one success to the other with enthusiasm. There's a couple of stories that I read out of Richard Blackaby's devotional recently. Talked about a couple of people that all of us have read about and have in our history books. We've heard their stories, one being Henry Ford. Great success, and he experienced great success, and he was very famous. Henry Ford loved his son, Edsel, but his efforts to toughen him up were misguided, and he was constantly humiliated. Over time, Edsel's health collapsed under all of the pressure. There's a lot of pressure that we can feel in the middle of great success. One of Ford's chief lieutenants said Ford's greatest mistake of his life was the mistreatment of his son. I love what Francis was telling us tonight. He's on his way to China next week or this week. He's taking one of his children, one of his 5 children, correct, with him to China. Wow. That's amazing. John Rockefeller, great success, also very famous, a brilliant businessman who struggled to relate to his daughter Edith when she became an adult. And for the last 20 years of her life, she could not bring herself to visit her father. Cornelius Vanderbilt, great success and very famous. He became one of the world's wealthiest men through railroad and shipping interests, and his son Cornel was an embarrassment to him, and they became estranged. His son refused to go see his father on his deathbed, and he was largely ignored in his father's will and spent his last night gambling away his remaining assets. And then he shot himself to death in a New York hotel that he could not afford to pay. These men were truly famous and prosperous, but I would beg to differ. Were they truly successful? I, Anne Beiler, Auntie Anne, I can relate to failures. I've experienced more in my lifetime than I ever thought I would. I didn't set out in life to fail. My dreams as a little Amish girl, and as a young bride, and as a mother of 3 were quite simple. And I never imagined that my life would go into great despair and that I would experience as many failures as I have and go into great darkness, which I talked about earlier this morning. But I also have to say that I've accomplished and experienced more than I ever dreamed or thought or imagined. My greatest success is not Auntie Anne's soft pretzels, but rather overcoming my own personal failures. I'm grateful that I didn't quit in the midst of a time when my life had fallen apart. I'd failed so miserably that I contemplated suicide. Wow, I really am here because of the power of grace and one good man. I love telling my story because every single time I tell my story, I remember what God did for me. And it's truly amazing. So I got back up many times. I could relate to getting back up again and again and again. Just get back up. That's what we have to do. I believe that true success is not about what you can accomplish or accumulate, but rather how much you have given away at the end of the day. And I know in the 21st century there are many, many philanthropic businesses. And many of them use their wealth to truly make a difference. In Psalm 49, David said, "Do not be overawed when a man grows rich, and when the splendor of his house increases, for he will take nothing, zero, nothing with him when he dies, and his splendor will not descend with him." You know, come to think of it, I've never gone to a funeral. I've never seen a bag of gold. I've never seen 401ks or CDs or bonds or stocks of any sort in the casket of a deceased person. And yet, many times, unless we understand what our purpose is, we get off track and we really feel like money is so important. Jonas and I, we believe that we can give our way into great success and experience great blessing. Many times people would ask me the question, so what's it feel like to be successful? I never could answer that question very well. I don't know what it feels like. I was too busy working hard to make it work, to fulfill the purpose for which Auntie Anne's was created. But one day the Lord just gave me a line about that, and he said that blessing is a direct result of obedience, and success is a direct result of hard work. Let me say that again. Blessing is a direct result of obedience. Read the Bible, check it out. Success is a direct result of hard work. So staying true to your purpose in the midst of great success comes about because, first of all, your purpose is clear to you. And you persevere to stay true to the purpose. And I can say that any success that we've experienced happened because of faith, hard work, great people, and staying true to our purpose. I clearly remember the first day of Auntie Anne's. It was definitely a new day for me. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't know anything about business. Zero, nothing. But I can tell you the purpose that I went into business with made Auntie Anne's an unstoppable force. There were many days in the life of the company that I wanted to quit, but my purpose kept me going. I didn't think that I had what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Most of you know that an entrepreneur is someone who will work 16 hours a day to avoid working 8 hours a day for someone else. You're laughing because you did it. That's right. We are willing to put 16 hours a day in just to simply avoid working 8 hours for someone else. It's true. I also believe that a successful entrepreneur is someone who will simply do what others don't feel like doing. Think about it. Why are you successful? Why have you accomplished what you've accomplished? It's because you do what other people don't feel like doing. It's hard work. You got to get up and keep doing it every single day. Many days in the early days of Auntie Anne's, and actually not the early days, but the whole life of the company, for me, I didn't always feel like doing what was required of me as a leader and as an owner of a company. Many days I didn't think that I could. People have asked me through the years, so what kept you going? How did you go from a housewife to one farmer's market, to 25 stores, to 50, to 100, to 400, to 500? How did you do it? Well, in very simple terms, there's two things that I did. I cried a lot, and I prayed a lot. And I became an expert at both over time. That's why earlier I mentioned grace. I needed grace, not just from God, but I needed grace from my employees and my franchisees and the vendors and all the people that we did business with on a daily basis. Well, I have to say that over time I became a bit more professional, and I actually stopped crying in the management team meetings. Imagine that. Yes, I did. I stopped crying. I realized that was not very professional. I had to learn how to be professional. I had no idea. What kind of clothes do I wear? How do I look? How do I run a company? I had no idea. But I can tell you, purpose is what kept me going. When I didn't know what to do or how to do it, I would feel the passion of purpose in my heart. We had purpose before we had Pretzels or a business. Purpose is what gave me the energy to get up every morning, to get up and leave my house and go to work. Just a bit about my history. I was born a little Amish girl on a farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. 5 boys and 3 girls. 1 mom, 1 dad. The old-fashioned way. Life was simple for me. Life was secure for me. Mom and Dad took us to church every Sunday. They taught us about God. I learned many things on the farm that I would take with me as an entrepreneur, just to mention a few. Faith in God, hard work, work together as a team, be kind to people, use the golden rule every day. And Mom said it starts at home. Be kind to your brothers and sisters. Use the golden rule. Go the second mile at home. You know, somehow we have this idea that we can win the world and treat our family as second-class citizens. That is not okay. That is not okay. I believe great success happens when we're successful in our homes with our families. Good relationships. And I learned that in my little Amish farm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And persevere, something that we were taught every day. If there's any farmers in the room, you know what I'm talking about. On the farm, you just got to work. You just have to do it. So I learned to do the things I didn't feel like doing at a very young age. It's called perseverance. I really feel like it set me up for my future as Auntie Anne. The farm is where I developed a love for baking. And at the ripe old age of 12, I would go home from school on a Thursday night. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, except for Thursday night. She went to market with my dad to Philadelphia. And she would have a note on the table, and it would say, Anna Betts. My name is Anna. She called me Anna Betts. Tonight I want you to make 30 cherry pies, 20 apple pies, 15 shoe fly pies, 10 chocolate cakes, blah, 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 whatever it was. But it's a total of 60 or 70 pies and cakes that I would make by myself in the basement of our little farmhouse. I'm talking about perseverance. I would walk down the steps. I remember it as if it was yesterday. Tears just flowing down my cheek, wishing Mom was there to help me. And yet, wanting to please my parents so much. I wanted them to be proud of me. I learned how to persevere on the farm. Over time, I married a hard-working Amish guy, and together we set out to fulfill our dreams. We were young, innocent, and filled with love for each other and for God. I was living my dream. If you grew up on an Amish farm, in an Amish home, really, your only dream is to be a wife and a mother. Have your own family. So that was my dream. In a few short years, we had a couple of children. I had my own family. We were married about 7 years, and our 19-month-old little girl, Angela Joy Beiler, was killed in a tragic farm accident. Now, I was going to church faithfully. I was a good girl. I was a good mom. I was a pretty good wife. I was doing it all right. And tragedy struck. I talked about that this morning. And if you want to know a little bit more about that, it's in my book here. But it took me into a place of depression and darkness like I'd never known existed. I went to my pastor, who I thought was a good man. I went to him after about 5 months of grieving and just the loss of it. And my husband and I were just becoming emotionally distant from each other. And our storybook marriage came to an abrupt end. I went to my pastor for help. And before I left his office that day, I was seduced, and I was in disbelief and shock. And I decided that I would never tell anyone what just happened to me. It was a choice that I made that morning that was far-reaching. It took me into such darkness. I can't even describe to you the details of my life for the next 6 years. My marriage was simply existing. And now my faith, I questioned it. Where was God? The God of my mom and dad. Where is he? And why? I mean, I was doing it all right. Why? My grief was too deep for words. And so I withdrew into a very quiet place. I lived in this dark place for many years and thought that life was over for me. I withdrew into a place of secrets. And those 6 years of silence took me into 20 years of depression. I didn't know until years later that out of my pain, my purpose was being formed. God was with me every step of the way.
God is with us every step of the way. And make sure you catch the next episode and the conclusion of Anne's message as she shares more of this miraculous journey and the healing that comes through surrender and complete trust in God. We would be honored to serve you in your journey of business leadership through the various aspects of FCCI's ministry initiatives. Please make sure you're part of the Connect Community app, which is a free platform where you can connect with other business owners and leaders and receive regular encouragement through the stories and content that the community shares. And if you aren't currently participating in an FCCI business leadership group, then please prayerfully consider spending 1 hour a week with a small group of Christian business leaders like yourself, serving each other as a peer advisory council for business, family, and life guidance. And don't miss out on this year's annual FCCI conference in September. Learn more at conference.fcci.org. Thanks for listening, and may God inspire your journey as you lead a company for Christ.